Recently, I've been playing with the Nuclei tool from Project Discovery. And I'll be totally honest with you, I've never really used Nuclei before. Like, I've heard the name and I knew it exists, but I always just thought, oh, that's more in the bug bounty world that I'm not usually in. And honestly, I just never tried it. But now I realize Nuclei is the tool that I have always dreamed of. Like, conceptually, the idea, scanning for different kinds of vulnerabilities or findings and things en masse, it's what I always wanted, but never knew it already existed. So Nuclei is awesome. Let me show you. I'm here on their GitHub repository, and of course, I'll leave a link for that in the video description. Nuclei is a fast, customizable vulnerability scanner powered by the global security community and built on a simple YAML-based DSL, enabling collaboration to tackle trending vulnerabilities on the internet. It helps track down vulnerabilities in applications, APIs, networks, DNS, cloud configurations, and a heck of a lot more. But Nuclei boils down to using these super simple YAML-based templates, like a configuration file. Or maybe you might be used to in sort of Yara or Sigma, or really just a lot of tools now that use YAML to define anything it could do and make it extremely extensible. But rather than Yara or Sigma or whatever, this is like fully in place for looking for vulnerabilities, scanning for different findings that are worth exploring a little bit further. Now we could do this from the command line. We could kick the tires and get this up in action if we were to install Nuclei. They include a guide in their documentation, and it is super easy to install. It is literally a single go command to go install. You do need the latest version, but we can go get that super easy. So to play with this, I am inside of my Kali Linux virtual machine. I can hit Control-Alt-T on my keyboard to open up a terminal, F11 to full screen, Control mouse scroll to zoom in, and let me paste this in. But you'll notice I don't have Go installed, so I can super simple go ahead and install that with golang-go. It will prompt for my password. I can use Kali, as that is the default, and we'll hit yes to get this installed. Once that is installed, I'll paste in the go command again to go ahead and install Nuclei. It takes a little bit. There are a lot of dependencies because this tool has so much power and so many different features. But once this is done, I'm back at my prompt and I could try to type in Nuclei, but it's not yet in my path and I don't want to install it from the repositories because we just did it via Go. But now it should be in a Go directory, kind of in your home profile. Inside of the bin or binaries folder, we have Nuclei right here. I do actually want to add this to my path just because I had just installed Go and got this set up. So I'm going to edit my shell configuration. I'm in Kali Linux, so just zshrc. At the bottom of this file, let me just export the path environment variable, set that equal to the current value of the path, but with just probably my home Kali Go bin. Go beans! All right, save that file. Let me reset or just probably /our zshrc. Now, no matter where I am, even if I were in my home directory, I should be able to run Nuclei, and you can see that's highlighted here. All right, Nuclei version 3.5.1. The first time you run this, it won't have the templates installed, so it will go ahead and grab them. There we go. That'll already be downloaded and available in the directory. And take a look at this. Current Nuclei version, we are running the latest because we just downloaded it the way we should have. Same thing with the Nuclei templates. Those were just downloaded. But there are almost 9,000 templates now, which is absurd. 8,701. Time of recording. Back over in the GitHub repository, we could take a look at the command line flags with the -H or all the help output. And there is a ton of stuff that you could do, providing a target, maybe a list of targets, things that you'll exclude, and you could provide the templates and what you will do or even filter on different sort of responses and results. There are so many different options for configuration and how you set the behavior of this tool. This goes on forever, and I don't think I could really cover all of it, but look at all the stuff that you could tweak and tune as you use Nuclei. But now that we have it installed, let's go ahead and do something. Let's use the Nuclei scanner. Back on our command line, we could use Nuclei with a -target to specify a target, or -u like you might have seen for shorthand notation. So we need a target, something to scan. So for this demo, I'm going to use some of the labs that come from Hacking Hub. Hacking Hub is another online training provider or cyber range, tons of different labs or hubs to be able to practice, sharpen your skills, and learn more cybersecurity. Put together by some awesome people in the scene. You might recognize Ben Sadegapur, Namsec, Adam Langley, Build Hack Secure, Todd Bailey, and there's me. I guess I'm there too. But one more thing we're super stoked about is a brand new Nuclei Masterclass course. And I do have a voucher for you if you want to snag that for 50% off. There's a code link down below in the video description. And if you wanted to learn a little bit more Nuclei, you get all that sweet education from Ben Namsec himself, and it's really walking through a ton of real-world scenarios. Over 5 sections, 27 lessons, almost 2 hours of that practical training, and a ton of stuff to dig through. So I hope you go take a look, link below in the video description. And 50% off. You can use the code Nuclei50, or the link should automatically apply it down below. And I will say, last one, sorry, this is going to be included in a lot of the sweet Black Friday deals that Hacking Hub is offering. There are going to be some sweet bundles with the Linux for Hackers, Regex for Hackers, hands-on web application exploitation, blind XSS, cross-site scripting, and of course, this sweet Nuclei Masterclass. So there'll be a whole ton of promo for Black Friday stuff. Hope you get your hands on it. Link below to video description. All right, let's finally do the thing. I'm going to open up Firefox, my web browser, just to show you what web page we're going to be up against here. Hacking Hub has spun up a domain for me, aquamarine.ctfio.com, and I do want to go to the www front end on there. So we have NeuroCore Labs, advancing neuroscience through blah, 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 this stuff, but there's not a whole lot for us to be able to see just from the page itself. So why not use Nuclei to see if it could scan and uncover as much information as it could? Let me try to do that. Let's use aquamarine.ctfio.com and let this thing go. Might take a little bit of time, but take a look at this. From the 8,701 templates that it's been able to use, it actually ended up just shrinking that down, clustering some of the templates down to 1,825 or so. And we'll talk more about the templates in just a sec. But first, I wanted to have you see this thing in action. Oh, tracking external service interaction. Oh, also detecting maybe a web application firewall. It does see Nginx running behind this thing, right? And we could kind of go validate that. Like when we connected to this web page, if I actually take a look at the browser tools, let me open the network tab. And if I tried to reload this page, it should be able to give me one of the headers here that tells me, yep, this is Nginx. Validating that manually, it at least saved us a step, right? But imagine a tool that does that scanning, check, verification, and all that for any different asset across however many of them you want. That is Nuclei. Look, it even saw, okay, some simple robots.txt endpoint. So /robots.txt, in case we forgot to go take a look, told us there's a stats page. There's a research page. Let me jump to that. Let me get to /robots.txt. Sweet, it found all those. What is at the research page? Ooh, how about stats? Okay, cool, I found a flag. Nice. Whoa, okay, even got a email address here. Saw that from the front page, was able to just extract that out, found the Nginx version from that header, and a lot of different output for security headers, like strict transport security, X-frame options, content security policy, blah, blah, blah. So this scan completed in just about 4 minutes. Granted, I sped up the video and cut up a lot of the waiting, about 24 different hits based off the different templates. But let's go take a look at what some of those Nuclei templates really are. Remember, Nuclei, the first time that we ran it, it automatically downloaded, saved, and stored these Nuclei templates in our home directory, and we could take a look what all this stuff is made up of. Just moved into that directory, we could ls and bebop around in the terminal, but honestly, it might just be easier to try and take a look at the whole thing in our text editor. So I'm going to open up in Sublime Text, and look. Realistically, this is a GitHub repository, so we could clone and download these really easily. But you can see how it's kind of differentiating a lot of the different kinds of endpoints, whether it's something that it's scanning in the cloud, like Azure, AWS, GCP, even code, like specific syntax or vulnerabilities, real CVEs that have been out and about in the wild. This is kind of awesome. Hey, here's a specific CVE for an authentication bypass in GitLab. Maybe some port swigger references, some blogs and articles that are out and about, and then how this all comes together. There are tons of others here. Here's some Erlang or SSH remote code execution. Here's Crush FTP. And this goes on and on and on. Whenever there's a new vulnerability that like falls out of the sky, I always hear, hey, there's some sweet new Nuclei templates that are out and about. Just really quick, like within a couple days or a week. There's some scanning that could be done even specific to files, like sensitive keys or information that might be included in any syntax or any other information that you could track down in some of the code, like the real software and syntax that's behind the applications you're interacting with. Look at all of these. Holy crap! Stripe API key? Yeah, that's got to be a finding. And they're using regular expressions here to extract this stuff out. Oh, they even have a malware subdirectory. Whoa! Anyway, I want us to chat a little bit more about some of the HTTP stuff, like when we're connecting to a web app, looking for vulnerabilities, looking for stuff that might be out and about. Can I find the robots.txt one? Something super simple. Let me hit Control G and try to go to robots.txt.yaml or YAML, the robots.txt endpoint, and take a look at how these things work. I know we're just looking at a simple example here, but I wanted to show you the syntax. We've got an ID defined that's like the name that was displayed in the Nuclei output. An info section, a little bit more metadata, like the name of what you're tracking, the authors, the contributors, severity, metadata, and maybe if you want to include the references or links in there to help others, like analysts or for folks working through this. But the HTTP section here is the most important tidbit, because this is where you define different requests, like how is Nuclei going to scan, interact, and look for vulnerabilities or whatever they might be, based off of different methods. Like you could make a post request or put request or get request, simplest case here, and then the URL or the path that it goes to. They have sort of a template looking like syntax for base URL, and then where you'll go. You can even define how many times you're willing to redirect, and then you define different conditions for matchers. And you define the matchers themselves, or what is it that you're trying to match and find and validate really exists so that you see, okay, this is present. This finding really exists. I know this is simple robots.txt example, but we'll move on and elevate to write sort of even maybe a little bit of our own syntax or see this in action in just a sec. Here we're looking for the disallow word, just like we saw when we browsed that page. And the content type, like the MIME type or header here for robots.txt, that matches. Status 200 code, of course, we want to see the page successfully returned to us. So this all makes sense. It's pretty logical. And you just define it naturally in this YAML syntax based off of the requests and matchers that you define. And while there are almost 9,000 different templates that we could go explore and get some syntax ideas for, we could create our own, maybe learn a little bit of the YAML syntax, get a feel for the schema, but while they're explaining a little bit about the templates, they actually note you could use their totally free AI-powered Nuclei templates editor that's all online at Project Discovery's website. So for a little bit more of our demo, I know I've been pointing us at www.aquamarine, but there is another that I want to showcase, labs.aquamarine. We can see it's just another flat, silly, stupid Nginx landing page, front default install, but there might be some more secrets here. We can scan it with Nuclei, but I do want to show us how we could just spit together our own template and get another feel for the syntax. Maybe we cheat a little bit, we use our AI crutch, but look, that's the way of the world these days. And while I'm cheating, let me break the fourth wall. I know there is a hidden dangling .git folder there, a directory that's exposed for a GitHub repository or Git repository. Now, obviously this already exists as a Nuclei template, but I want to walk through the steps so we learn. So let me prompt our Nuclei templates editor AI here, scan for a .git directory exposed on an HTTP or web endpoint. Let me click send, And look at this thing. Okay, it gives us a default like boilerplate one here. Let me zoom out a little bit so that's kind of easier to read. But then it started to generate it. Oh, it already did it. Exposed git directory was the ID that it gave us, and maybe it's going to look for a .git directory. It uses one of these HTTP requests, just like we expect here, with the method get path that's provided, and the matchers are expecting a 200 HTTP status code in response with a like directory indexing list. Let's try that, and we can just go back to our terminal. Let me actually make a git.yaml or whatever. We can paste all this in. I hit Control V, hit Control S, close it, and let's use Nuclei now with the labs domain, and let's use that -t with our git.yaml file in the current directory. Found it, but didn't find the .git directory. Well, let's do some learning together here. And again, I'm intentionally dragging us against the wall here because I think it's important for us to go see, really, how does this make sense? We don't get a 200 status code response. So that matcher isn't the right match for our Nuclei template. 403 forbidden. We never get a 200. So let's change this up. What else could be in like a .git folder? Normally it's the /config file or like the head indicator, all caps. So how could we change up our rule? How could we change up our template? Let me ask AI, change the approach here and look for a .git/config file. How does it work with just that as the input? Should change up the template that we're working with here. And, ooh, yeah, okay, just modified expose git config. It runs a get request to look for the base URL /git/config with a 200 response code on that. And if it has some words here that make sense, you could decide, you can determine, are these other conditionals for our matchers? Do they really make sense for what we're looking for? Are you willing to accept if we were to remove these potential false positives because maybe there's something else hosted at a .git/config, whatever the case may be. But let's try this. Back in our command line, let's modify our git YAML and then change this. Let's go rerun Nuclei with that info, and it got it. It found it. Okay. You can see the hit for our expose git config. But let me tell you, we didn't have to do any of that because, as I mentioned, Nuclei already has a template for this. Let me close this out, and then let me look in the folder here for git. And there are a lot of these that could be any sort of understanding. GitLab, GitT, looking for certain things. Git logs exposure, though. Oh, actually finds kind of a similar approach that we had. Well, AI did, right? HTTP requests for base URL.git and logs head. And then it tries to track down some of the pertinent information, including like some of the regular expressions that might be here. There are tons of these. So let's go see what our actual scanner, without using any of our own custom templates, but just the however many thousand already exist on labs.aquamarine and this endpoint. So I'm not providing any other tags. I'm just running that. Let's see what it finds. Clustering down templates again. I do tend to see this take a little bit of time because it's going through a lot of different templates. You could use -V, turn on like verbose mode to see all the different kinds of traffic that it's sending there, all the scans that it's performing. But there we go. Oh, a couple hits again on the external service interaction just to get us started here. Will we find Git? It's worth noting too, we could also limit the amount of templates that it's using or specify a certain amount or any kind of filters that we want. But oh, it tracked down the Git config here. And then a lot of the missing HTTP headers. But we got Git. There's the Git logs exposure just as well. So since it did find a Git repository exposed on that website, could we use a tool to dump that entire Git repository? Could it loop through and find any of the objects? And there are a lot of resources for this, and I know I've covered these plenty before in other videos, but let's use pip to get Git dumper. And then we could try and pull down the entire repository and see what secrets or sensitive info might be in there. Let me actually move into a temporary directory for us to work in. We'll just call it for git. Forgot. Okay, that's fine. Typo, I don't care. Then let's actually specify a virtual environment for us to work in so we can cleanly install this pip library, and then I can pip install properly. Okay, now can I run git dumper? I can. Okay, we want to do that on our labs.aquamarine.ctfio.com, and we can just put it in an output directory. Yep, I forgot the schema. You're right, that should include an HTTPS : to start that. And will it track it down? Cool, downloaded it all here. Sweet. So now inside of an output directory that was created, we could see what would have been here. There is a secret admin folder, and maybe if we wanted to go find stuff in this directory, we could. Or we could just throw it to Nuclei. Because remember, there are tons of scanners, tons of templates here, even for like local files. And it might be able to track down any of the certain kinds of secrets that could be stored in a GitHub repository or in any sort of data that you're looking at. So let's see, is the syntax here Nuclei with the target being like this folder? And I think I could specify -file to denote there will be files in there, I think. Yeah, okay. It found a lot of stuff. It found a SendGrid API key. Let me zoom out. There are a lot of hits here. SendGrid API key, Slack API key. You can see the full value. Okay, maybe a little bit faked for that. Credentials disclosure, PHP stuff in action. Whoa. Maybe these aren't all that helpful, but it does point us at, okay, what file and what actual location should I go explore? But the others, it could just rip out the secrets and find the sensitive detail right away. Let's go look at the templates for those because I'm super curious what sort of regular expression are they using to track that down. Here's one, and depending on all that muscles you got with regular expressions, you can see the SG SendGrid beginning portion here, and then a list of character options like all the alphanumerics, about 66 possible repetitions of that. And then maybe if it has new line characters or quotes, double quotes or single quotes behind it, and the end of a line potentially. Dang, that's so cool. Again, obviously that's just one of many that Nuclei could track down and all the different templates that it might be able to search for. One last firework for you. Ben, or Namsek, had showed me this sweet repository from Optiv with mobile Nuclei templates. It includes some stuff for potentially sensitive things you might track down on Android, or for other keys, some other things. Maybe there's some duplicative material than what is already in some of the Nuclei templates that we have. But if you're interested, we could use some of these templates in the keys directory. They have a lot of other options. Amazon, Facebook, GCP, Google, LinkedIn, MailChimp, SendGrid, blah, blah, blah. So I'm curious, will this track down anything else in our repository for that secret folder as opposed to the others? So we could pull this down and then try and use this with Nuclei. Again, super easy. We could just pass it in as the templates to use. So nothing fancy. I'm just going to git clone this repository, and then I can use Nuclei like I have before, specifying the files that we're going to be looking for, but let me actually specify tact for other templates, and let's use the mobile Nuclei templates and keys directory. Will that come through? Yeah, significantly less templates, right? Didn't have a lot of other noise, but reliably found the SendGrid API key and Slack API key here. And much faster, right? And this is only scratch the surface of all the stuff Nuclei can do. So listen, I gotta start using Nuclei more often because my goodness, that's so stinking cool. I love the idea of just small, simple, easy, but smart YAML files. Like to configure these templates, right? That could scan and validate and do all this testing, hunt for these findings in an easy way. So you can automatically discover what you're up against and you don't need to go through all of that enumeration yourself. Hey, if you caught the bug just like I did, I know I, for one, am going to go through that new Hacking Hub Nuclei masterclass and course because my goodness, this thing is just too cool. Link below in the video description, 50% off, Nuclei 50, all the sweet Black Friday deal shenanigans. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, please do all those YouTube algorithm things like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.